It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Welcome to North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. We are honored to have the Production Horticulture Advisor with the Cooperative Extension at the University of California, Davis with us today. With a PhD in horticulture and agronomy, he's a leading figure addressing water challenges in San Diego's vibrant nursery and floriculture industry. His expertise is in irrigation management and water quality, and that makes him a key player in navigating the complexities of water regulations and fostering profitable and responsible practices. Today, we're going to discuss water issues in California, potential solutions, and how this ultimately affects the food that we eat across America. From America's Breadbasket, I'd like to welcome Gerry Spinelli. Welcome, Gerry, and thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very good. So let's start out with your background. So how did you get where you are today?
Oh, it's a long story. I grew up in Florence, Italy. My mom had some property there, and she had some olives planted there. It's typical. We love olive oil, and so it's common to grow. It's common to grow olives there, and so I grew up, and also we had some land that we would grow our own vegetables, and then but all our decisions with irrigation and fertilizations were very I cannot say that they were very scientific. So I would give to my onions, I would give a handful of fertilizer just because this is the size of my hand, right? The Lord gave me these hands this big, and so I said, well, okay, my onions need a handful of nitrogen and 5 minutes of water. And so it was more of a guess. It was more of a guess than a calculation on how we would decide to manage water and fertilizer. And so maybe because of that, growing up, I must have thought, there must be a better way to take these decisions. And so I ended up studying horticulture, agriculture, and then I was around the world during my 20s, and I finally landed in California, and I did my PhD at UC Davis in horticulture. And then I had the honor to get this job in San Diego with UC ANR, University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. And my title is Farm Advisor. And my job is to work with growers collaboratively to provide solutions.
Well, that is amazing. So I was recently in California. I did some farm tours as far north as Sacramento, and then I had another conference down in Fresno. And the topic everywhere I went was water. Whether you're in the north or in the south, water is a very big issue. And for those of us in the East, we don't think about water like that every day. So it was very intriguing to me to hear all the different sides. So can you provide an overview of the current water issues facing, especially the nursery and floriculture industry in San Diego, and then how it compares to the broader challenges of California.
So there's the old joke that whiskey is for drinking and and water is for fighting over, and this joke is very appropriate for California.
Yes.
And we there is a lot of discussions about where how water resources are supposed to be managed, but then there is also the problem with what they call water quality, meaning basically pollution. And so there is both an interest in the supply of water, and also in protecting the environment on where the irrigation water or the runoff water or even the storm water goes, if it goes in the river or if it goes in the groundwater. There is a lot of work and a lot of interest in protecting the environment in that sense. California is a big state, so we receive our water supply from different areas. Down here in Southern California, we are on mostly Colorado River water. We have also some local supply. We have some lakes up in the hills, and we also have notably the Carlsbad desalination plant that also provides some of our water, although that water is very expensive, as you can imagine, because you gotta squish it out, you gotta squish out the salts out of it. And so the result is that for my growers in San Diego County, the cost of water is really high, and as far as I know, is the highest in the nation. And we pay $2,500 per acre foot. 1 acre foot is about a third of a million gallons. So for comparison, maybe in the Central Valley of California, maybe they would pay $100 for an acre foot. In the coastal valleys of California, we talk about $200, $300. We're at $2,500. So
wow,
we pay a lot of money for that water, and so it's very important for growers to be very efficient with water management. So one of the things that I do is to work with the nursery industry and with the greenhouse industry to improve management practices, and also irrigation equipment to improve efficiency and management, and also irrigation scheduling. There is also a related practice that is in particular in nurseries and greenhouses, that is capturing the runoff water after you irrigate. Inevitably some water runs off, because not all get intercepted by the pots, by the containers, or some leaches out at the bottom of the containers. So some of that water runs off, and currently growers in San Diego capture this runoff water in a pond or in some kind of structure where they can avoid that it runs off off-site, and that of course would be an environmental problem. But instead, this water gets captured and then can be treated or can be blended again with fresh water and then can be reused. So some of these practices are really a win-win, because you can reuse the water, and at the same time you protect the environment by avoiding that you discharge this water into the surface, into the lakes and rivers and creeks. And the ornamental industry, the greenhouse industry, the nursery industry here in San Diego has been very innovative and very willing to adopt these innovative practices. The county and the regional water quality control board that are water quality, water pollution regulators, they've been also very, very successful and very good at interacting with growers to, on one hand, working with growers to get them in compliance with the regulations, but also being able to adapt the regulations in order to make them more reasonably more good for the specific reality that each nursery has.
Right. Yeah. So I'm assuming if with the cost of water and that comparison you gave us at the beginning, you must be growing high value crops in that area then. So what specialty crops are growing in your area?
So in San Diego, we have some, so to speak, traditional crops that are avocados and citrus. The acreage has been going down because, again, the high costs of water and the high costs of land have been kind of squishing these crops a little bit out of the economics. The economics are really hard for the avocados. Also, Mexico developed a really good industry during the past maybe 20 years. So much that we even get an advertisement during the Super Bowl, believe it or not, of the avocados coming into from Mexico. So it's really hard. It's really hard to compete with our costs of water and with our cost of labors and with our regulations. It's really hard to compete with that product coming in from Mexico. Nevertheless, we still have a sizable avocado industry, and is larger than the in terms of acres than the nursery and greenhouse industry. But on the other hand, in terms of value, the nursery and greenhouse industry in San Diego is a powerhouse. We produce, and I proudly include myself in the industry, proudly and shamelessly include myself in the industry. We produce $1.3 billion of value per year, and by comparison, it's larger than all the tomatoes grown in the whole state of California. Wow. And so the nursery industry and the greenhouse industry and the cut flower industry and also other things that are grown in greenhouses, including transplants for vegetables, for example, or maybe small trees that then become an orchard of almonds or pistachios. All these different productions are part of what we call the nursery and greenhouse industry, but as you can imagine, is the variability of product is the diversity of what we grow is really high, and also the different techniques that we use. One day I may visit a succulent and cactus grower that is outdoor, and everything is in potted in containerized production, but there is no screen house, there is no hoop house, there is no greenhouse. And then the next day I may walk into a super high-tech greenhouse with double polyethylene covering and with heaters and with fans and with evaporative cooling fan and pad systems, and they may be growing some tropicals or some indoor foliage plants. So and everything in between. So the techniques are very different. And so it's hard to put this industry in a box. it's hard to say who we are and what we grow compared to the almond industry or the grape industry or the processing tomato industry that is a lot more standardized.
Yeah, and I was surprised to learn that California is now producing over 400 commodities, both plant and animal, all together. And so every day we're eating things from California, and I think it's good for all Americans to think about that much of our food is being produced out in California. So the regulations there are affecting our tables every day too.
Right. Your tables and also the plants that you buy, not because you want to eat them, but because they improve your life with beauty, or the flowers you put in your house to improve your environment and your mood.
Right. And so San Diego County is implementing a new agriculture order, which is going to be enforced soon. Can you tell me what the specific regulations related to water management are going to be that growers need to be prepared for?
Yes, these are some regulations that are focusing on nitrogen, mostly irrigation and nitrogen. The idea is protecting groundwater and surface water from surface waters from pollution. So in agriculture and in horticulture, we use fertilizers that contain nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus. And of course, it's very important that we, as an industry, that we protect the environment. We avoid that these nutrients again either run off into the creeks and lakes and rivers, and also do not leach into the groundwater. So the interest is both for protecting groundwater and surface waters, and these new regulations that are coming are specifically looking at the quantity of nitrogen that the grower applies compared to the quantity that the grower removes. And so these new regulations are, the idea is looking at this difference between how much is applied as fertilizer and how much is removed as harvest. So we have a lot of discussions that we are having right now with this idea of A minus R. Again, A is the pounds of nitrogen applied per acre, and R are the pounds of nitrogen removed with the harvest, with acres per acre with the harvest. And so currently there are being some discussions with the water quality regulators to improve these regulations and how to apply them for the specific reality that we have here in San Diego. That is very different. Is a very different kind of agriculture and horticulture of what you may find in the Central Valley of California or in the coastal valleys of California, where much of the rest of agriculture in the state is concentrated.
That makes sense. And so how are growers preparing for complying with the new regulations?
Well, so a lot of interest is in improving how nitrogen is managed, and how much is applied and how it is applied. And so and I'm also part of that discussion, and I'm also part of that education. A lot of it has to do with measuring, and they say you cannot manage what you don't measure. And so a lot of the education that I do working with growers is about measuring and calculating how much fertilizer is either injected into the irrigation system. A lot of growers use what we call liquid feed, meaning that there is a fertilizer injector that injects some quantity of concentrated fertilizer into the irrigation line. So basically, the idea is using irrigation water as the carrier, as the vector for distributing fertilizer. But of course, you need to sit down and make some calculations and make sure that the injector is injecting at that rate, and the concentrated solution is made with this many pounds of fertilizer per gallon. And then you can also go at the end of the irrigation line and take a sample and measure electrical conductivity or even measure nitrate in it. And then you know that you're applying the optimal amount of fertilizer. Of course, nobody wants to apply more fertilizer than they need because, of course, it's expensive, and then it hurts the environment. But on the other hand, you don't want to apply less than what your plant needs. And so it's important that this management is done in a rational and optimal way. The other technique that we use to apply fertilizer in the nursery and greenhouse industry is what people call CRF, controlled release fertilizer. And it comes in little prills that are coated with various material, and this coating is permeable, and depending on the temperature, depending on a number of things, and so this prills, this little ball of fertilizer releases slowly, and there are techniques to measure how much fertilizer is available to the plant. One of these techniques is called the pour-through method, where basically the grower gets one pot and pours some deionized water and collects some leachate, and then there are tables where one can measure again the electrical conductivity, and from there we'll know if the plant has enough fertilizer or not. So my job is to teach these techniques to growers and to thereby improving their fertilizer efficiency. And growers are very receptive to this because they really like it's a very innovative industry. People like to learn new techniques or use new tools and measure things and be more efficient and save fertilizer and save labor. And so it's a very dynamic industry, and it's really and my effort and the effort of my colleagues of the university are very well received by the industry. So it's a pleasure and a privilege to serve the ornamental and nursery and greenhouse industry in San Diego.
Right, that's great. And how is the county measuring success? Like, are they coming out on farms? Are they measuring the nitrogen levels? How is that going to work?
So both the county of San Diego and the Regional Water Quality Control Board, that are two regulators, and they've been also very nice to work with. Of course, they do their job, so they're the regulators, but they've been talking to each other, which is great. Sometimes paradoxically, the growers get regulated by two different sides, and these institutions are these like Kafkaesque things that don't talk to each other, and so you don't know, like, hey, I'm complying with this already. Why do you ask me to do the same thing twice? Mm-hmm. So luckily, here in San Diego, these two institutions have been great, and they've been trying to put their effort together. So then the grower has to do things only once. And we're still in this process. There's still some room for improvement, but it's great to know that there is the flexibility from these institutions to work with us. And our situation again also is a little bit in between, right? Because we see both point of views as the university, and we're also regarded as those that have the answers, right? Like we are the scientists, So we have all these books behind us, and we study. You have your book, and so then people tell me, okay, Gerry, tell us about plant nutrition of greenhouse crops, right? So we are the one that are supposed to give the answers, everybody. So sometimes we are squished in this in between. But the county has a water quality program that is both for irrigation water and storm water, and they have a very successful team of inspectors that go around and visit nurseries and find areas where the grower can improve their compliance. And so luckily they've had a collaborative approach where again they like to work with the grower and say, hey, you need to fix this, and work with Gerry or also NRCS has been involved, and they've been great too. The Natural Resource Conservation Service, and so the grower would have an inspection, and they would go through all the practices that they have, and typically we're talking about water management practices. I have a ditch that is conveying my stormwater out of my production area. I want to keep the ditch clean, or I want to line it to avoid that stormwater on its way out picks up some sediment, and maybe bound to that sediment there is some phosphorus, or maybe bound to that sediment there is some low solubility pesticide. So or maybe I have a culvert that stormwater brought some debris in there, and now I have to clean it. So the inspector would walk the nursery with the owner or with the operation manager, and help them be in compliance with the regulator with the regulations. As far as irrigation water, currently the regulation says that no irrigation water can leave your property. So if you're irrigating, a runoff cannot go out of the property, and this is something that is being enforced seriously.
Right.
So there is no joking around here. And so that has led to many growers applying a number of these practices to avoid runoff and to protect water quality.
And I read an article where you were quoted kind of describing some of the challenges of this regulation, especially with how diverse the crops can be in one place, where you have a different, fertilizer recipe for each plant. And how do you manage that? So what are some of the solutions that you're going to be helping growers implement?
Well, so that goes back to this discussion that is happening both at the local level and also the state level,
right,
for these frameworks of applying of the grower reporting applied nitrogen and removed nitrogen, and that's as you may expect is easy to estimate how much nitrogen 4,000 pounds of almond kernels have removed from a field, or 18,000 pounds of romaine lettuce as removed from an acre. But it's more difficult for a grower, for an ornamental grower that may be growing in the same nursery or in the same greenhouse, often in an acreage that is smaller than 10 acres. So it's a very small, and it's very, in terms of area, and it's a very concentrated production. And maybe the grower may be growing 200 different kind of plants.
Right.
And so it's not unusual for me to walk a greenhouse with the grower and asking, what's that? Is it aglaonema, or is it zingonium, or is it Dieffenbachia? I don't even. No, it's a pile. No, it's not a peperomia, right? So it's I just walked 10 yards and I've seen already like 5 different plants that I don't, is it an alocasia or is it a colocasia? I don't even know. And so how do you estimate how much nitrogen these plants have removed? And also the cycle is not seasonal. Of course, an almond is a plant that is outdoors, and so it flowers when it needs to flower in February or in March, and then it gets split whole when it has to do it. I don't even know. And then you harvest it in late summer. But the ornamental industry, we produce year round,
right?
And so we so there is not seasonal, and we harvest all the time, and we plant, so to speak, all the time. So it's hard to find a cycle. We can have easily 3 or 4 cycles a year, or even more for plants that have shorter cycles, like some product in smaller containers can have like a couple of weeks or 3 weeks of cycle. And so that makes it difficult. There is also the complication of what you grow and what you sell, that is not always the same, because there is some shrinkage. There is some plants that are not sold, and so they get thrown away, or it's an industry that the value of our product is in its aesthetics. And so unfortunately, if a plant doesn't look good, nobody's going to buy it. And so there is always some percentages of these plants that you don't sell. And so then again, this is an additional factor that makes it complicated, because the harvest is not the same as the production. And so there is some quantity of plants that I have grown and have applied nitrogen to it, but they're not leaving the nursery as yield, so to speak. And so now I cannot estimate anymore how much I have removed by what I've sold. And so so there are all these complicating factors, and again, both the grower community and the academics have been engaging in discussions with the regulator, and the regulator has been very flexible and very willing to listen to us and to engage in discussions with us. So that's great. And we don't know where the discussion is gonna land. Of course, there's always people saying, no, we should be exempted, and then instead others pushing for more stricter regulations. One of the things that definitely is a winner, in my opinion, is some of the things that we are ironically we're already doing here in San Diego for other reasons, partially for other reasons, which is, okay, I'm going to capture all this water, right? We know that this runoff has pesticides in it. We know that this runoff has nitrate in it. And we know that this runoff maybe also has sediment in it, that phosphorus may be bound to it. Let's just collect it. Let's just collect it before it leaves the nursery, before it leaves the property, and then we can collect it so it doesn't hurt the environment, and then we can do something with it. We can put it through a sedimentation pond. So now we get rid of the sediment We can inject some chlorine, or we can inject some ozone. So we kill pathogens. So we avoid that. We recycle our own plant pathogens, which is obviously a big concern. And then now we can reuse this water. We can measure the electrical conductivity. Of course, you don't want to use water that is very salty, so it's common to blend this water back in with fresh water to decrease the salinity. But then it can be reused for irrigation. And sometimes I have growers that say, well, I use this water that has high salinity only on these plants. These other plants are more sensitive, so I just use municipal water on those. So there is some complicating factors, and one it's important. One needs to know what they're doing, but if they do, then it's a win-win, right? Because now you reuse water. I have a grower that asks me, hey Gerry, I want to estimate how much water I'm reusing, and so we put a flow meter on his lagoon, on his pond where he repumps to, and I have a data logger there, and I download the data, and every time I send in an email, and the guy is super happy because I say, like, well, you have saved 10 acre feet that otherwise you would have spent $2,500 an acre foot. You just saved $2,500, and the guy loves to get these emails from me because
I bet
he knows how much he has saved in water. So it's definitely is a good practice. The bad news is that it's expensive, right? Because building a pond, lining a pond, and all the equipment that is associated is not cheap. But definitely is a practice that protects the environment. And so I don't know if everybody statewide can apply this specific practice or other practices, but certainly to me, the way to get compliance is to focus on each specific reality that, as we said earlier, is there's a really big variability, and to collaborate with the grower to implement some of these practices that we know protect water quality.
Yeah, and are you seeing like technology adoption of new technology through this, and where are we going with technology?
Yes, we're seeing adoption of technologies that are already there, and some growers that earlier were not using it, they adopt it. For example, technologies for treating runoff water. Some growers injecting chlorine oxides, some growers injecting ozone. There is another solution that is called slow sand filters, and some growers are using those. There is also interest in using technologies for irrigation systems. Most growers in 5-gallon pots and larger, 5-15s, and definitely the boxes, 24-inch boxes, they use localized irrigation, meaning spray stakes or drip emitters, whereas sprinklers that used to be the rule are not very common because they're less efficient. And also, we are getting more pressure compensating emitters that also allow the grower to distribute water more uniformly. And so now the grower doesn't have to over-irrigate to make sure that the plants that get the least amount of water get enough. When your irrigation system distribute water very unevenly, you will get some plants that get a lot of water and some plants that get very little. Now you have to irrigate longer, so these plants get enough. But in the meantime, these plants that had already had enough, now they get more than enough, and then you get runoff and you get all those problems. So anything that can make the irrigation more even is going to ultimately save water. So pressure compensating emitters, and now there is also pressure compensating spray stakes. Those are some new things that 10 years ago we didn't have, or very little. They weren't very common, and now we're starting seeing it everywhere. Of course, in San Diego, when water is so expensive, it's easy to justify a change that it costs in terms of equipment, but the grower looks at the number and say, well, okay, their return on investment is 2 years. It's worth doing it. And also sprinklers compared to the old style impact sprinklers made of brass, we see those less and less, and we see more other technologies. Now I cannot say brands, but we see more innovative other technologies that again improve distribution uniformity and of water, and also of fertilizer when you inject fertilizer in the irrigation system. And so we see a lot of those. Some growers are also using drip tape or drip hoses in smaller pot sizes, and I don't know if we can call that the technology, but I see a lot of growers growing can to can, as they say, meaning that the pots are touching each other.
Right.
That's something that improves what we call the interception efficiency, because as you can imagine, the closer you keep your pots, the more likely is that your irrigation system, your overhead water hits that pot instead of hitting the alleyway. So the trade-off is that then you have to move these pots around, and so we see improvements there too. There is some innovative futuristic technologies that now they're very niche, but I'm sure that someday will be the norm, where we see little robots with wheels, and they're battery powered, that go around, grab the pot and move them around. And again, this may seem something weird or kind of a curiosity now, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of space for that, particularly with the costs of labor and with the availability of labor. That is also a problem these days, is not only how much labor costs, but whether you can get it or not in the short term is also a big problem. So any technology that improves water efficiency and labor efficiency, it's definitely welcome.
Yeah, for sure. And technology fascinates me. And that's why I cover a lot of technology, ag technology here on the show. There's always, we have to think about so many angles as well. And I know a year or 2 years ago, I had on the show a pump company, and their model was to sell it to the counties and the cities. So the counties and the cities would be able to turn on and off the pumps. Now, a lot of growers are like, nope, not interested, because now they're competing for water, which they are anyway, with the current systems. But then it's on a level where they are competing with people's front lawns, with their swimming pools, right? So what do you think about those type of solutions? Are you hearing those being tossed around at all? Or do you think it's going to be managed on the farm level?
We have most of my growers use municipal water
Mhm.
already, and we are in an area where you drive out of the nursery, and there's big apartment complex where people live right there. So we are at the intersection between rural area and urban area, and then we don't have in some areas up in the mountain we have some, but in general we don't have a lot of groundwater resources here in San Diego. We have very little water, and it's also high salinity, and so the few growers that have wells in the county, they need to, so they do have a pump, but maybe we're talking about a 5 or 10%, very few. And then they have reverse osmosis systems, so they would have to put just like the desalinization plant in Carlsbad. So the grower would have their own small desalinization plant to remove salts from this groundwater. And so but still even when they have wells, they also still buy some water from the municipality that is, as you were saying, is delivered already pressurized. And the water district have a little bit of a cheaper price for agricultural use, but not really. So it's a little cheaper than for municipal use, but is the same water, and is not a lot cheaper.
Right.
Another solution that municipalities have been working on, and that's another thing that has been very very successful, and it's happening already in Fallbrook, and I know that Escondido is working on that too. I don't know if they have it ready quite yet, but they will soon. Is to reuse municipal wastewater from the water treatment facility. I know that they have to add some tertiary treatment in order to make that water usable for irrigation, but then they can sell that water to growers. And
Right.
that's what we refer to the purple pipe, because by regulation it needs to be painted. All those pipes need to be painted purple, and it's cheaper for the grower to buy that water, which is a good thing. It's a good thing for the city, because they can get a use for that water. It's a little more expensive for them to do the treatment, but then they can sell something that in the old days they would just it was just a waste product that would go to the ocean. And the grower can buy, again, the grower buys this purple pipe water that is a little cheaper than the other water. It has some salts in it. It has higher salinity than the municipal water. So then again, there's a management issue there. You got to measure your salinity. You got to decide which of your plants, like maybe my Washington, my palms are a little tougher. They can take the high salinity water, and this is my petunias. They can't. And so there's some management there, but it's been something that has been very successful. And again, thanks to the collaboration between the cities, the local institutions, and the growers, and that's definitely, it's been a win-win. So yeah, that's been very helpful too.
Oh, that's good. And so how can California growers collaborate with organizations like Farm Bureau and irrigated lands groups to access resources they need, support they need, and even to be able to work with the local extensions? What can they do to really get the assistance they need to follow new regulations and even keep up with regulations?
Oh, so it takes a village. So now we've been talking about myself, but we're all working together here in San Diego, and the San Diego Farm Bureau has been a great collaborator and a great resource for their members, for growers. And here in San Diego, the Irrigated Land Group is housed by the Farm Bureau, and it was created by a group of growers that decided to work together and to help all the members and other growers to be in compliance with the water quality regulations, what the current ag order that we have. So without the Irrigated Land Group and without the Farm Bureau, it would be impossible. It would be impossible for a grower to be in compliance, because what the regulator asks is that each grower takes a sample of nutrients and of pollutants in the surface waters and report it to the Water Quality Control Board, which would be too expensive for a grower to sample by themselves.
Right.
And so the Irrigated Land Group offers this service to the growers, and of course they charge them a fee, but then they use this money to do sampling altogether. Because maybe there are a number of farms, or there are a number of operations that they're part of the same watershed, and they all drain to this river, to this creek. So instead of 10 people taking 10 independent samples, the Irrigated Land Group takes only one sample and reports it for everybody. So again, they have been a great resource for the growers. The Irrigated Land Group is also a great resource for the regulators, because then the regulators has some institutions or some group to relate to and to have discussions with. And they have been a great resource for me for doing my job, that is, delivering science-based information and disseminating knowledge to growers that can use it. So for me has been very, very important to work with the Irrigated Land Group and to be able to access the growers community through them. So it's the work that they do is great, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So thank you to the San Diego Farm Bureau, and thank you to the San Diego Irrigated Land Group.
Yeah, that's great. And I have one last question for you. Why do you continue to serve the industry? What are you most passionate about in what you do?
Well, it's great that all together we can achieve some results, and it's great that all together we can all of us can achieve their objective, right? The grower, we can keep the industry competitive, and we can keep the socioeconomic benefits of such a big industry keep coming to San Diego. This is an industry that employs a lot of people, and there are a lot of families that are able to pay their bills thanks to this industry. So certainly we wanna protect that. At the same time, we also want to protect the environment. So and we want to comply with regulations. And so what I'm passionate about is killing two birds with one stone, and adding adding science, or adding research and evidence-based reasoning and technology based solutions to improve efficiencies and to do better the same things that we used to do before, but using less resources and optimizing practices and improving efficiencies. And so we can produce better plants, and because that's what we do, and sell beauty to America, and but at the same time also protecting the environment and respecting regulations. So again, it's been a great privilege and a great honor being part of this effort. And again, thank to the grower community, thank you to the Farm Bureau, to the Irrigated Lands Group, and thank you to the regulators also, because they've been really great to work with.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Great conversation and lots to think about.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to all who are watching or listening. If you want to learn more, links are provided in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram channels, and the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Listen Notes, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you liked the episode, I'd love it if you shared it. Have a great day. Did you know that at NorthAmericanAg.com, we are committed to providing valuable resources for farms and agribusiness? Find your next podcast in the Best of Ag podcast library, delve into our on-demand webinar series, check out the latest in ag news, or treat yourself to a new hoodie or tee from our swag shop. Head over to our subscribe page to join our community and be the first to know about what's happening in the industry. North American Ag provides daily ag news and weekly podcasts covering ag tech, ag policy, new products, family, and faith. North American Ag gives farm families and ag professionals insight into what's happening in agriculture throughout North America. Ditch the mainstream media. Join North American Ag.